by another up-and-comer, Shift HD. And Shift was already in the low 120 range on the GameCube version when others started to take notice. Another runner motivated by his own will to learn and grind the game during an era void of resources. And much like Fuff, he'd seemingly come out of nowhere with a mysterious background. But within several streams, Shift started opening up to viewers and began talking about picking up the Xbox version of the game to further his improvement. And once it arrived, he kicked into high gear, which attracted the attention of other speedrunners interested in the FPB. At this point, Shift wasn't really involved in the community surrounding the game though. He was only aware of Hazel's 80% task, which piqued his interest in cruise boosting, and Cole's former world record from which he'd learned the rest of the game. He was kind of on his own island, just doing his thing, day after day. It wasn't until Shift met Konasumi from a Twitch raid that he'd finally begin getting to know some of the people surrounding Battle for Bikini Bottom. Kona had expressed interest in learning to run Battle for Bikini Bottom in the past and had noticed Shift due to the frequency of his streams. The two chatted for a bit, and Shift eventually decided to try creating the first full BFBB any % tutorial after he'd achieved sub 110. With a time this competitive, it would assure the explanations in the video were at least decent enough to help his new friend learn the run. Kona would patiently wait for the creation of the guide, as would some other lurking prospective runners. Setting a goal time of 109 caused some community members to wonder, would Shift eventually attempt to beat Fuff's world record? But Shift didn't know the answer to that question. His primary motivation behind achieving this goal was allowing himself to create the tutorial video for Kona and the rest of the small community beginning to form around his channel. And at this point, Shift probably wasn't even aware of what times Fuff was achieving. It seemed he was oblivious to anything outside of his own community, and the same could be said for the other small communities on their own islands as well. That is, until an elder member of the mainlands invited both Shift and Fuff to the new Battle for Bikini Bottom Discord server of 2016. This server was the replacement for the former Skype group of 2015 and earlier. Most of the older runners had joined the server, but they were all inactive. With Fuff and Shift being the only ones actively running and streaming the game, the rest of the reawakened community was anticipating and hoping that Shift would rise to the occasion and create world record competition, something the community had not experienced in over 2 years. And with Fuff returning to 80% to defend his time, seeing as Shift's improvement was not stopping anytime soon, they all knew it was only a matter of time. While Fuff de-rusted his 80% runs, Shift finally achieved his 109 on May 25th, 2016. That same stream, he recorded the full 80% tutorial he promised Konasumi and the viewers he'd garnered from streaming runs of BFBB. Within the coming months, several new runners would finish learning the Shift's tutorial and submit full runs to the leaderboard, a phenomenon Shift cites as being more fulfilling and motivating than even improving his own personal best. The first complete Battle for Bikini Bottom 80% tutorial is linked in the description if you would like to check it out. Though BFBB was both Fuff and Shift's first attempt to speedrun, their community included other players with prior experience with speedrunning. Jared's Giants was a former top runner in Luigi's Mansion, and he just rejoined the community with help from the new 80% tutorial. Konasumi, who'd also developed a small Twitch following through speedrunning a variety of games, would eventually learn through the tutorial as well. The new Battle for Bikini Bottom Discord server helped to kickstart their friendships, especially Jared's and Shift's, who'd formed a much closer friendship with their passion for the game as the backbone. The community was proving its resilience even long after many thought it was curtains. The second revival was imminent, and a grand occasion was needed to set it all in motion. Fuff would finally improve his own world record from 107.53 to 107.40 on May 28, 2016. Meanwhile, Shift's improvement continued even more dramatically leading into June. A few days after his second 109, he landed a low 108 on June 3rd. And, only 2 days later, Shift finished Battle for Bikini Bottom in 107.39. Which would have been a world record if Fuff had not achieved 107.31 only 2 days earlier. By now, the view count between their streams had doubled in anticipation for the coming competition. But later that same day, the wait was finally over. Yet another new world record holder in the same year. The game's competition had been revived, yet both runners knew there was still lots of room for improvement. Fuck would demonstrate this 4 days later in response to Schiff's first world record.
All right, Pinhead, your time is up.
With both runners so close to the next minute mark, the race to 106 was on. Schiff and Fuck's competition would mirror that of Cole's and Hazel's from years ago, even to the extent of representing their respective countries. With USA and Canada chants flooding Twitch chat, the second renaissance was in full force. On June 11th, 2016, viewers checked into Fuff's stream to find him on insane pace, nearly 50 minutes into the run. He was already on the perfect line for a 106, over half a minute ahead of his 107.03. But this run could even skip straight to the 105 if the stars aligned.
$221.